Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. I'm so excited to be back with you guys today. And today I want to speak about hope. Hope. Hear me out. I've seen a lot of quotes talking about how hope is useless and hope is just an emotion that we have without any action behind it. And I'm talking about real spiritual people teaching that hope is a useless emotion because it's not the actual change needed. And for a minute or two there, I kind of bought in and humored this. Okay, all right, well, I can see how it's not actually an action, it's not bringing change, and hope is just an excited emotion that something could happen without training your mind that it is happening, and that is useless to do. And on a psychological level, I can agree with that because the mind, the subconscious mind, doesn't understand future or past tense things. It thinks that everything is happening right now, as it truly is in quantum realms. So if you say, I will be a millionaire, or I will heal, and you use that as an affirmation, it eventually deadens inside because your subconscious mind does not understand the future, and it doesn't hold on to that affirmation. But the emotion of hope is useful in healing the emotions and healing the spirit, and I found that to be very true. This week, I was guided to a very particular verse in Ezekiel, and regardless of the context or the story it was trying to say, I was guided to one verse, chapter 1, verse 17, and all that verse says is, when they went upon their four sides, and they turned not when they went. So if we're taking this completely out of context, we have no idea what that means, right? They went on their four sides and they did not look back. So there's two things to this that I was inspired to teach on that kind of turned into this whole other thing that I've got going on in my brain right now. One, Ezekiel utilized the number 4 again. The number 4 we know is that leadership, that strength, that stability, firm foundations, healthy foundations where everything can be built upon without it toppling over, our root space. And then he said, and they did not look back when they went. In shamanism, we actually have a principle called no back doors. And the point of that principle is that every back door or backup plan that you give yourself, every back door will eventually become a front door. Because if you have a bunch of backup plans and you begin to feel fear about doing the thing that you actually want to do, then eventually you're never gonna do that thing that you really feel called to do. You're gonna take one of these backup plans or one of these back doors. And so we teach in shamanism, at least through Alberto Vialdo's line, we teach that we don't have backup plans. We don't have safety nets. We don't have back doors. When we know what we're being called to do, we step forward bravely and we do it like we're jumping off of a cliff. This is the expression of destiny because it's taught that it's not actually being worthless that we're really afraid of. It's our destiny. We're actually afraid of stepping into our full power, what we are capable of, what we'll end up having to do when we're in our full power. What does that mean to us? So bringing that into the context of this verse, I feel like we are now collectively in a space where we are being pulled into our calling. Even if we don't consciously know what that is yet or have any awareness of what it's going to look like when we get there, we're being pulled into our calling because we have gone through so much healing that we have that firm and steady foundation, and we don't get to just look back. we get to have our intention. Know what your intention is. I do this a lot with my clients when they come in. If you have a calling, if you know that you have a calling, and you're actively working towards that calling, such as being a healer or being a reader or starting a business, whatever it is that you are spiritually trying to move forward to do, even in a mundane job, a regular job, but it's your spiritual calling, you have to have an intention. What is my intention? Is my intention to restore life to them? Is my intention to heal? Is my intention to bring love? Is my intention to bring happiness, to bring joy? Always have an intention with what you're doing, because it lights up everything inside of you when you live that intention, and it keeps you on an integritous path. It keeps you in alignment with your calling. If you know this is my calling and my intention in my calling is love, then when you're making decisions, free will decisions on that path of your calling, every decision will be made in alignment with that feeling of love. And if it doesn't feel like love, you won't make that decision. And so you're keeping yourself in alignment on your path. Here at Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center, we have the slogan, "Welcome Home." Our intention here is to bring people back home, back home. Now, when we think about that, it's not that we want you to feel safe or like you're coming home when you're with us, although that might be the first step, because we are a safe space. When you come to us for teaching, for healing, to pour yourself out, you are in an environment where you are safe and loved and accepted, no matter what you look like, no matter where you're from, no matter your background, no matter your religious practices. We accept you and all of you, and we're here for you. So that might be the first step. But what this actually means is welcome home. Welcome home is not a place, it's a feeling. It's a feeling. I'm gonna share this story, and hopefully she won't get mad, but she won't get mad. Our vice president for Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center, when we first started working together in this way, I had a dream, so I knew that she was supposed to be the one to walk this path with me. And I also am very, very aware that no two people are really given the same exact vision. Everybody has their own purpose, their own destiny, their own thing. And we can collaborate and work with other people, but ultimately no one else is going to be doing your destiny with or for you. But I had this dream that she was there with me and we were in union with this. And so I said, fine. I asked her in person or over the phone, whatever it was, are you going to do this thing with me? And she was like, yes. But we started working together. We started getting together in the mornings. We started doing our morning meditations, journey work, chanting together. And there was one day in particular where I saw that she had some sort of feeling or emotion or thought going on inside. And I think I said, how do you feel? And she said, home. And I knew in that moment that she got what I was trying to create, the welcome home, because she understood that it wasn't that she felt safe here or that this is what a home should look like. It's that she understood who she was on the inside. She met her inner self. She met her God self. She met her home. She had come home. Your home is your God self, who you actually are on the inside, without all of the outer stuff, without the humanness that's so necessary on this dimensional plane, but it's not who you are. So when you come home, this is what you're coming home to. It's not about where we are or the nature space we're in or who's helping you. It's about you. your inner self, coming into oneness, wholeness, unity, all of the things that you actually are on the inside. And when you're there, there's no looking back, because nothing else matters. Nothing else matters but home, but that inner self, that connection to your God self, and it guides everything else. There you will find safety. There you will find stability. There you will find your treasure and your value. And only when you're there will you understand the prayer that I pray within Earth and Star every single morning. The first thing that I say is, may there be peace on earth. And I watch peace flowing over the entire earth from me first, my inner God self. I'm not sitting here waiting for peace to find me. I'm not calling peace to me. I, in connection with my inner God self, am peace, and that overflows, covering the entire universe. Then I call in trust in the universe. I watch trust overflow from me across the whole earth, so that everybody knows that they can come into alignment with their God self, with source energy, and that all is well and all is as it should be when we are in that space. That is trust. Then I move to the northern space and I call an expression of soul. And I see expression of soul moving everywhere. And this is the dancing, the singing, the crying, the love, the joy, this is everything that we are as humans. And as a soul, we share all of these aspects. We come here and incarnate to experience all of what it means to be human, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, the joyful, and the painful. We're here to experience it all, the health and the illness. And so expression of soul is the expression of all of those feelings and experiences. And it's so necessary. And then I say, may there be love as perfect oneness. And I imagine myself in alignment with love, overflowing from me, over and across the entire universe. After I do this, I say these words: as I am human, I am nothing. And I watch myself turn to dust. And I say this because when we are in that perfect alignment with our God self, this is where nothing else matters. We understand that we are not we, that I am not me, that I, whoever Mary is, whatever the ego is, whatever my human is, I am nothing and I don't matter. Whatever I do in this life, if I chose not to do it, somebody else would, because that spirit of the God self would flow no matter what. No matter what. If I took a completely different path, these words, this teaching would go through somebody else. As I am human, I am dust. I am the earth. I am star seeds. I am nothing except matter. But then I say, as I am spirit, I am everything, because I understand when I'm in alignment with my God self that I am in union with God, that I am God, that I am one, that everything is one, and everything is everything. That one is everything. It's all experiences. It's all emotions. It's all thought that ever was and ever will be. That's God. And I'm that. That's what I am. So I am everything. And then I say, as I am consciousness, I am every one. Because within shared and collective consciousness, I am you and you are me. And I understand what it's like to go through so many different experiences, or at least have compassion if I don't have memory of going through those same experiences. Within collective consciousness, we are all one person having a human experience, and those human experiences are important too. We're here for a reason. We're here to experience them for a reason. My prayer goes on beyond that, but that's the part that I really wanted to share in connection to this, the understanding of what that looks like and what that means. And that when we're creating in connection with our God self, we're not doing it from personal need. So if you are creating something or walking the healing path or the teaching path and you don't consciously have an intention, you can journey about it, meditate on it, or just take a deep breath and clear yourself of all thought and emotion and ask yourself, what do I want to create? And listen and feel the first thing that pops into your mind and body. And when I say, what do I want to create? Chances are you're not going to see a thing. You're not going to see a thing you're supposed to be doing. You're going to feel an emotion, receive a concept. What do you want to create? You might hear kindness, you might hear hope, you might hear joy. And these are your intentions and the vibrations that you're to hold yourself in every time you do this work. Your God work will be with this intention, and it will guide you and it will keep you on track and in alignment with your highest self. Somebody asked me a question, and it was, I think, months ago. It was a comment on one of the videos, and the last time I channeled the archangels, I had that question on my list to be answered. And when I got to it in that video, the angel that I was channeling told me, no, this will not be answered today. This will be something separate. So I kind of tucked it to the side, and months later I got the answer to this, not through a channeling of an archangel, but they were coming to me and just giving me little breadcrumbs, little bits and pieces of the answer to that question. Here was the question. Why do some people with low vibrations have large abilities and don't want them? And others who are high vibrating long for those abilities, but those abilities seem out of reach. And that was a tough question. I was like, I don't know the answer to that. Now, right off the bat, it seems like the answer to that might have been, if we take the low and high vibrating hierarchy part out of it, why do some people who don't want abilities have them, and why do some people who long for abilities not have them? It seems like we're talking about maybe there's blockages, or they're fearful, or something like that. But an angel came to me and said, I have the answer to that question. And I said, gasp! What's the answer to the question? I have to know. And the angel said, they don't want to be important. And the angel left. The angel gave no other reasons, did not expound on that, did not give anything besides those words. They want to be important. So I'm going to expound on that. People who long for their abilities and their gifts, according to the angel, don't shoot this messenger, please. It seems that when they long for those abilities, there's a reason that they're longing. Being in longing is not being in surrender. Being in longing is a push, it's a desire, it's a want, it's a need, and that's not in surrender and flow of what you are and what you're given in your life at that present moment. Speaking from personal experience on this, I never wanted to do any of this. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that out there. I never wanted to run a shop. I never wanted to be a healer. I never wanted to be a teacher. I did want to be a school teacher at one point, but not a spiritual teacher. I never wanted any of this. I had an angel come to me when I was in bed. I think I might have been 7 years old, and I was staring at my nightlight, not sleeping, and the angel said, "You're going to be a missionary." And I said, "No!" And I started crying. I was a little kid. I started crying. Now, as I got older, I would look back on that moment, and I'm like not necessarily what you would call a missionary, you know, where I'm going to other countries and talking about Jesus Christ and all of those things. But I have become a spiritual teacher, and a teacher that I think is very, very needed in this day and time, because I'm not bound by only teaching rhetoric or doctrine, but I'm also not bound to being opposed to people with religious backgrounds, because I feel like it's all one thing, and I'm teaching it as if it were one thing. So I get that in my 7-year-old mind, being raised in a Pentecostal and Baptist household, that was the only word I understood to mean you're going to teach spirituality, but you're going to do it to many people in different places. But I didn't want that. I also remember when I was called into healing work, and I kept hearing a word in my mind over and over and over again until a teacher found me. But I didn't long for that. I didn't go out and just say, "This is what I'm going to do, guys, and this is who I am." In fact, I found myself just doing it. It just seemed to happen to me. And there I was, just doing what I did without really feeling like I had put a whole lot of effort into it. I had done the learning, I had done the teaching. It was a lot of effort for me to learn how to do it. But when it came down to being that person and doing the healing for other people, it just sort of happened to me. It was hard work once it did, but it happened. And then when I was brought into opening the shop, I've shared this with you guys before, an angel came to me and told me I would open this shop. And I got on my knees and started crying. I did not want to open this shop. It's a lot of work. And what if you fail? What if you don't do well? What if people are mean to you because of your calling or what you believe or what you're doing? And trust me, that happens. I didn't want to do it. I cried. And here I am doing it. And it's not because I longed for it or cared to be a person in power. I did not recognize the depth of my power and vision. I did not want to be seen in the light. In fact, I had been doing this for years and never advertised myself. My mother-in-law was the one who would advertise me, and she'd say, "Mary, why don't you talk to people about your shop? Why don't you talk to people about the healing work that you do? Why don't you tell people about yourself?" And I'd say, "The people who need me will find me. I have a website. I have a booking link. I'm on Google. I did the things that I was called and told to do. I don't feel the need to shine the light on myself." And I didn't. Over time, I slowly started stepping into the light a little bit here and there, because I recognized I have to live in my full power, whether I really want to or not, because this is who I am, and this is what people need and what people need to see. And I can't stand in the shadows and just wait for people to crawl to me. In fact, Susan Lynn was the one who told me to start this YouTube. She said, "Mary, why don't you have a YouTube?" And I said, "Because I don't want one." Again, I don't want one. But here we are. And this is kind of what I feel like that angel was saying. The angel was saying, underneath it all, anyone who has a longing, a huge desire, or a need to be someone, to have power, to be special, to have abilities and gifts, really what's happening beneath the surface is we don't feel our worth without it. We don't understand that unless we have our gifts and abilities open unless we can do all of these things that we see other people doing, or be in the limelight, or be here, that we feel less than. So this is a worth issue. A worth issue. You have to know that you are one. You have to know that you are everything. You have to know that you are God. Be in touch with your God self and be nothing at the same time. And when you are content with what you are and where you are in any given moment of your life, this is where you find your power. This is where you can be in your full power and then let that grow into who you were meant to be. That was an amazing question. It was an amazing question because we don't have to feel important. If you look at a lot of the big people out there, they probably never actually wanted to feel important. And there's a lot of different examples we can give of people who got big or important and things changed. But remember, this is why we keep our intention. What is our intention as we grow into this importance, as we grow into this? But there's no hierarchy. Everyone has their own calling. Some people might be called to be these teachers, to be these YouTubers, to be these psychics and mediums and teachers, and other people might be called to do other things. There's no hierarchy. Just because somebody is seen more or has more followers or seemingly has a big gift of vision or a big gift of knowing or a big psychic gift, it does not mean that they have more gift than you do. Theirs is a very specific niche just for them, and that's what they're expressing. Yours is something different that's just for you, that only you can express, and no one else can do it the way you do. So you have to be true to yourself by first being content with who you are and where you are in any given moment of your life, and then growing into what you're meant to express. This is complete surrender. When's the last time that you were just on your face on the floor in prayer before the universe? Just on your face, not out of the need or the desire or the pain even, but just in complete surrender. I've seen this a lot where people will finally just give up and lay on their face and pray and pour it all out and express their emotion and cry. But a lot of the time, by the time they get there, they're doing it out of helplessness and powerlessness because they've been fighting the universe and fighting and fighting and fighting for so long that they're finally just too tired to keep fighting, and they become helpless, hopeless, and powerless. But you don't have to get to that point. You can come into a state of just complete surrender and flow. I love to just lay in the grass and imagine that I'm rotting away and turning into moss. I don't have to be a thing except for the dirt and the sun. I love that feeling of just being one with everything. That fight to be more, to have to do more, to perform, to have these abilities is keeping you in a state of fight. It's keeping you pushing against what you're actually supposed to be doing, which is in flow. We need to be able to surrender our ego, to know that all is as it should be. Baba Ram Dass said, the most exquisite paradox: as soon as you give it all up, you can have it all. As long as you want power, you can't have it. And the minute that you let go of that desire for power, you'll have more than you ever thought possible. The minute you let go of all power, you'll have more than you ever thought possible. As soon as you give it all up, you can have it all. I love Baba Ram Dass. I love him. So what we're talking about here is surrender of the ego, knowing all is as it should be. Your energy body knows how to heal itself when we can just let go of our mind for a little bit. There's a difference between processing and healing. So when we're coming into that state of surrender, I just want to throw that part out there. When we're in healing sessions, I like to do a lot of psychological work. I like to look into old stories. I like to express verbally and really dig into the nitty-gritty of what a person's been through and what they're going through, because this is how our mind comes into a state of awareness of what it's chewing on. Because a lot of people, when they're upset or they're blocked or their lives aren't working out, they really actually have no idea what their emotions or subconscious mind is actually working on. And so we go into this, so we bring our mind into a state of awareness of what's happening inside of our body. But once we have the awareness of what our mind and our subconscious mind and our emotions have been working on, we need to be able to come into a state of healing. Healing is transcending that awareness in order to integrate peace. When we come into healing, we're releasing the story, we're releasing the thoughts that our mind keeps telling us of how we're not good enough and we're not accepted and we're gonna fail and everything's scary. We're releasing the thought of that. Once we are aware the thought's there, oh, okay, release this thought, transcend that thought, and come into a state of peace. Once you transcend the thought, your energy naturally knows how to heal itself. It will naturally begin to process all of that out and let it go if you let it relax, if you come into a state of surrender and just be nothing for a minute of your life. Be okay with that. And then realize you're everything. And let that heal as you transcend into the everything, into the all, into the I am that I am. Now, there is a chant, and I think that I've said it before on this channel because I've been working on this chant for a few months. I go into different chants until I understand what they mean inside of me, until they reach their fullness in my energy field. And the chant Om Mani Padme Hum, it literally translates to I bow to the jewel at the lotus flower of the heart. And so when I'm saying this chant with my Bodhi seeds, with my mala, when I say this chant 108 times, I noticed when I switched to this chant that the heart was like it was mulching everything, mulching emotion, mulching thought, just mulching, especially relationships with other people and interrelations. It was just mulching things like woo, woo, woo. And that's how it was moving. Now, after a few months of saying that chant, Om Mani Padme Hum, over and over again, after a few months, I noticed all of a sudden, as it started to mulch, it encompassed me. And everything for a moment was one. And that this chant was peace. This chant is literal peace, where everything is one, everything's in a state of love and oneness, and now we have achieved peace. This is what we're looking for. We just want peace. There's no I. Nothing else matters. Everything is as it should be. There's no performing. There's no more processing. There's no more feeling. And this is where you meet your God self. This is where there's no fight. Peace is where there's no fight. And if you're gonna find peace, quit fighting, surrender, lay on the floor, be nothing for a minute, and then transcend into the everything. This is where you meet God in the peace. So, the peace is where we're meeting God. When you meet God, or your God self, the God, your soul, when you meet this, it's never like looking at a person, because this is an energy that's only meant to be experienced, felt. There's no way that as humans we could look at our full God self or look at God's face, because it is everything. It is all of space and time, all wisdom, all knowledge, all feelings, all emotions. It's everything. And we literally, our minds, our human minds will fracture into a gajillion little pieces if we were to fully look at that, even for a second, even just for a glimpse, which is why we experience God, our God selves, but we don't actually see our God selves. We talk a lot about the essence of Jesus. We're going to go into the Trinity for just a moment. We talk a lot about the essence of Jesus and how that's the pure love space. So Jesus is the expression of God. This is what it feels like to be in that space where all is one. It's all in the heart. It's all love. Everything's peace. Everything's love. So Jesus and that archetypal energy is the expression of our God self. But what about that third little piece? We don't talk about that very much in spirituality. The Holy Spirit. And I'll be honest, I didn't meet the Holy Spirit until last week. It was really kind of cool. So I was sitting with a client, and we were doing a healing. And this person came in feeling quite hopeless because of their physical ailments that seemed to be declining over time. And when I'm working on this person, all of these angels were coming in, Jesus's energy was coming in, and I heard the word Ezekiel. And I didn't get the sense that this was like the spirit of Ezekiel, and Ezekiel's not known to be an angel. Ezekiel was a prophet. But then I heard the meaning of the name Ezekiel. And the meaning of that name is God strengthens. And then I was guided later to the Ezekiel 1:17 and that number 4, which is strength. Ezekiel literally means God strengthens. This is your strength. Your God self is the strength, is the stability. Don't look back. This is your calling. This is your intention. This is everything. And while I'm working on this person and I have all of these energies coming in and it's beautiful, I see what looks like a white ghost humanoid being come in on the other side from the wall, and it's just standing there talking to me. But it was so high vibrating, so pure white light, that I knew instantly that this was different than any of the other spirits or angels or things, entities that I'm used to working with. And the interesting thing was that I had been guided to put on the highest possible Hertz music that I had with my highest possible vibrating kuyas, my crystals, on the person's body. And so everything in that room was intense. It was high vibrating. This was under a full moon. There's a lot of energy coming in, a lot of energy. And this spirit came in and it said the message that it had to say for the client. And then I said, "Are you God?" And I heard yes. And I said, "I thought I couldn't see God because it was too much," because this was a word I had received last year. And this white light energy said, "You're not seeing God. You're seeing God's essence." And I knew this to mean I was looking at the Holy Spirit. It's as if God, our God selves, are everything, the universe, source energy. It's everything that ever existed, ever will exist. But because it's too much for our human brains to wrap around at one time, an essence or a mist comes off of it to deliver very direct messages with that vibration of God, but just in an essence, just in a cloud, just in a mist, just in a flame. And this was like, wow, because I had never experienced that thing before. In churches in different places, they talk about the Holy Spirit and how it hits you and you pass out and things like that. But I had never seen it like a cloud, like a mist. That was the essence of the wholeness of God. That's very, very interesting to me, and I wanted to share that with you. Now, moving into this essence, I want to spiral briefly into heaven and hell and how to utilize that. We've spoken in past videos about high vibrating energy, low vibrating energy, the duality of it, and how it's really a mindset. And when we are in peace and love, we are in heaven on earth. And when we are in fear and shame and guilt and separation, we are in hell on earth within our consciousness. This is what happens. I also teach that you can utilize both and that neither are to be feared or disregarded. Because when we look to the angels and the stars, we are asking them to help guide and direct our destiny, to raise our vibrations, to shine a light, to illuminate our path and our vision. But when there are darker energies around, or what you would call a demon, or different things like that, or attachments come to us, even though we don't want to stay in that space, these are the things that show us our weaknesses, our wounds that need to heal. And once we've healed those weaknesses and healed those wounds, we come into our true power, which is self-love. We have to work with our shadows, with our darkness, understanding everything that we are, everything that we're capable of, not just as me personally or you personally, but as a collective, as a whole, what humanity is capable of. And when we integrate those shadows and heal those wounded spaces, then we end up in a space of true power, which is self-love, self-acceptance. The truth of our identity and who we are is our true power. So we're utilizing both of these things in order to achieve peace. We use heaven and hell and bring it into our heart space to achieve peace. So then I went a little further into this because I have seen hell as well as heaven. So we talked about how as a consciousness, this happens on earth. We are in heaven or hell on earth within our consciousness, depending on our mindsets and if we have that ability to bring healing and to bring peace and integrate all of those things inside of ourselves. But there are also fractals of our consciousness within quantum realms that can go to actual spaces that I have seen. Now, just within timelines, we know that anything that you are ever capable of doing or being, any choices that you've ever made in life, you had the capacity to make different choices, and you did make those other choices in other timelines. And so there's tons of yous living out your current life right now in different ways. Quantum space. But when we think of the afterlife, when we think of pieces of our soul and where it goes when it's not embodied, this is where we get the heaven-hell scenario. So how I've been given the vision of, and all of these visions have come to me through experience, through working on hundreds of clients and seeing them in past lives and in between lives and in future lives, and this is what things come to. There's a big soul space that we all go to between lives. And this is where we cleanse and review from the life we just lived, where we plan for our next life, where we make agreements and arrangements with other souls who are going to incarnate with us. This is the soul space. And I think this is what most people would call heaven, if we're talking about a heaven that's not on earth, a space between lives. And I'm going to be honest, I have been shown that 80 to 93% of souls go there after life. This isn't like if you're good, you go here, if you're bad, you go there kind of thing, our punishment thing, but we'll get more into that in a second. This is simply the soul space, where you go after death. And like I said, at least 80% of all people get to go here. But I have worked on people where between lives, I've seen them in a limbo state, and I think that might be what we call purgatory. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know the exact words that you would put on that, but I have seen people in what I would say is limbo. And what this looked like to me, it looked like the earth, and then it looked like a sticky wall around the earth where people were literally just stuck, unmoving. There wasn't much thought there. There wasn't much doing. There wasn't any activity, really. It was just almost a nothingness. I've seen children's souls here. I've seen babies' souls here. I've seen adults' souls here. And I was told that about 5% of souls end up there before moving on. And then, only once have I seen the pits of hell. And when I saw this, it blew my mind, because we hear these stories, but I had never actually experienced this or witnessed this with a client before. And I was told that about only 2% of souls actually go there. So what that looked like to me was beneath the earth. It looked like a cave, and it almost seemed underwater, like in the ocean. And there was a round cave, like a pit. And in the sides of the cave, the sides of this rock wall, there were all these little caves. And in each cave was a long eel or snake that lived in each cave. And each person, each soul who came down this pit, they had a cave or a snake assigned to them. And I watched what was happening, because I was there for a very specific soul, and this soul easily lifted, and I was able to move that soul onto the soul space. But there was another soul there that there were vines wrapped around its foot, and I saw him being pulled into the cave, his personal cave, and his personal eel was trying to eat him. And I had the knowing in that moment that if he was eaten by that snake or by that eel, that he would be in a constant state of torture over and over and over again, being eaten, pooped out, coming back around, being eaten, and all of the torture was happening inside of the snake's body as well, because it was like there was pain. It was reliving something over and over and over again. The soul was reliving something inside of the snake's body until it came back around. And it was horrible. It was torture. Torture was the word that came to my mind. And I saw that if the snake actually was able to eat that soul and begin the torture, that was why it almost became permanent. Because once that happened, they became in such a state of hopelessness that they could never escape or get out. And as I moved away from that soul and looked down, in the depths, in the bottom of this thing, of this cave-like thing, there was a black pit at the very, very bottom. Just a black pit. And as I got closer and closer to it, I had the awareness that I didn't want to get closer and closer to it, that it felt heavier and heavier and darker, like you could just be sucked into it and disappear forever. But I actually watched a soul go all the way to the bottom of that pit and then get shot back out the top into the soul space. And that blew my mind again, because here we are, we have all these people in these caves being tortured endlessly because they lose hope and they don't know how to get out. But if you actually were to make it all the way to the bottom, you get out. And this is where I recognize the correlations between the teachings of shadow work, the teachings of soul retrieval, the teachings of surrender, and how we can flow back into oneness. Because when you reach the core of what's actually bothering you, the core of where all of your fear comes from, the core of where all of your lack of safety, and I'm not talking about the stories, I'm talking about the core of why you source the way you do, of why you react the way you do, because you don't feel safe, because you don't feel worthy, because all of these things, those are the things that are at the bottom of this pit. And when you surrender into them, the pit takes you and everything is suddenly rectified. From that surrender, we come into a state of wholeness. We come into a state of healing, of transcendence, and instantly those souls have moved on into the soul space. Now, these particular caves, you might be asking, well, what causes a person to get stuck in purgatory or limbo, or what causes a person to end up in that space? We can make another video later. I'll make myself a little note. We can make another video later going more in depth with that. But for time's sake right now, I'm just going to say that within the limbo spaces, it seems like what brought those souls there was that there was something not quite finished, but they just didn't know what, or what to do next, or how to move forward. So it just became like this nothingness there. Now, the pits of hell, these caves, these snakes, this wasn't, I'm not going to say that this was even a punishment. I don't like that stuff, those wordings, because we know that really sin is just a sense of separation from our God self and carrying guilt and shame, which is what separates us from our God self. We have to be in that space of love to reach our God space, that peace, that oneness where we meet God. So when we're in these pits, it just feels like there's a heaviness, and a lot of it feels ancestral. Like there's a lot of heaviness that pulls us down, where we just are so separate and separated from our God selves that we have to go deeper and deeper and further until we can surrender into this. And we'll go further into that. Like I said, I'll make another video about all of this. But only 2% of people end up there. So odds are you're one of the other percents and you're gonna do great. I believe in you. I have faith in you. But that's not, in itself, that's not hopeless. Because I was able in this particular session to close the mouth of one of these caves, to rectify that soul, to make sure that it was healed and transcended enough that it would not have to go through that experience in order to reach the other side and to get to the soul space. I will look more into this. We will do another video with all of those things. But for now, really what we're doing is learning how to utilize all of our gifts, all of our strengths, to just be nothing for a minute, to come into a space of surrender, to love exactly who we are, to accept exactly who we are and what our life looks like at any particular given moment, coming into a state of balance and peace so that we can simply experience our God selves and what we were put here to be. Not do, be, love, peace. That's who we're meant to be, even when we're having so many different experiences. I think we need to get some music in here. Maestro! This one's purely political. Software version 7.0. Looking at life through the eyes of a tired hub. Eating seeds is a pastime activity. The toxicity of our city, No, how do you own the world? How do you own disorder? Now, somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep, somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep, disorder. More wood for the fires, loud neighbors. Flashlight reveries caught in the headlights of a truck. Eating seeds is a pastime activity. The toxicity of our city, No, how do you own the world? How do you own disorder? Now, somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep, somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep, disorder. When I became the sun, I shone light in the man's hearts. When I became the sun, I shone light in the man's hearts. When I became the sun, I shone light in the man's hearts. When I became the sun, I shone light in the man's hearts. When I became the sun, I shone light in the man's hearts. When I became the sun, I shone light in the man's hearts. Let's lighten the mood, shall we? So this one is going to be straight from my heart to your heart, your God self to you. It's Randy Newman. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old pal said. Boy, you've got a friend in me. Yeah, you've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. You've got troubles, I got them too. There ain't anything that I wouldn't do for you. We stick together, we can see it through. 'Cause you've got a friend in me. Yeah, you've got a friend in me. Some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, bigger and stronger too. none of them will ever love you the way I do. It's me and you, boy, and as the years go by, my friendship will never die. You're gonna see it's a destiny, 'cause you've got a friend in